we interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Bam. The 11th episode of the Quantum Leap Revival series is now upon us. It's entitled Leap.Die.Repeat. Obviously, that's based off of that movie, Live.Die.Repeat, and it essentially follows the same structure, which is a Groundhog Day / time loopy thing. Essentially, Ben leaps into a number of individuals in this specific episode, because every single time that he does, and some kind of disaster strikes, his character dies, and then he gets to try again in another character that was in the same room. All around him is this mystery that seems to ask the question, who's responsible for this explosion that happens in a nuclear reactor site? And meanwhile, in modern day, the team actually has to get the help of Janice because she apparently wrote this paper on time loops and the scientific relevance of how that could happen in real life, or something to that degree. She wrote the paper on it, so they need her help on figuring out how to actually deal with it in an actual practical manner. I found this episode to be, a lot of fun. In general, I am a fan of time loop type films, and this is something that we don't really see a lot in TV shows for one main reason. It's hard to do in a series format. Daybreak comes to mind as an example. But Daybreak was canceled, and it gets even harder when you focus all of this time loopy stuff in one single 42-minute long episode. I mean, how many loops can one person do in that short of time frame? This becomes a little bit problematic because how are you going to tell an effective story without much digging deep into every character and everything? I actually thought that Quantum Leap did a pretty good job with that, with what they had. Because yeah, he leaps into like 5 different people in this episode alone, and an explosion happens every like 2-3 minutes, but in that short time frame, they do a pretty good job focusing in on what makes each character tick and what makes them special and what they want and how they view this project that they're focusing a lot of their energy on in general. It did a pretty good job, and it made me think, this is one of the few episodes of this series specifically where I felt like the narrative was more important in the leap itself instead of what was happening in modern day, which seems to be the focus for a majority of the episodes this season. Usually, what's going on in all these episodes is we're trying to figure out what these scientists are doing and trying to figure out where Ben will leap to next and what Janice has to do with everything. It's always about that and less about the actual story of the leap, which just seems to usually just be fun. This one actually seemed pretty important all around in the leap itself. The stuff going on modern day, that was important to a degree, as we got to see a little bit more of Janice actually being kind of a good guy in this episode, as the team actually had to trust her with something. But overall, we don't see a ton of that. We see more of what was going on in the leap. The end of the episode, of course, has this big old cliffhanger moment where Janice talks to Addison and she's like, hey, listen, I appreciate you trusting me for this one thing. I might have looked at you and distrusted you for the wrong reasons. So, tit for tat, I'm gonna give you a name here. I'm not gonna give you much more, but I am gonna give you a name. Please don't make me regret telling you this name. We don't hear the name in the episode, of course, but the name has something to do with the person that told Ben to leap in the first place, which is pretty big because I honestly thought Janice was the one that made him leap in the first place. Either that or Ben kind of made the decision on his own to do it. But apparently there's somebody else in the mix. Who could it be? Is it somebody that we've seen in the show already? Is it somebody that we have yet to see? Is it this Richard Martinez guy? No. Is it Al? Did Al tell him to leap before he died? What's going on? I love it that they posed this question because up to this point, I feel like there hasn't been a lot of questions in this series that we haven't already heard in the first couple, 2-3 episodes. That's where a majority of the questions were posed in the series, and then we just mostly been getting episodic episodes from there on out. And now we're posed another interesting question that makes us want to theorize a little bit more. So, guys, if you have theories on who this person could be that Janice is naming to Addison, please leave them in the comment section down below. I'm very curious on if you have any ideas. But overall, I had a lot of fun with this episode. I'm not entirely sure why there was a gap in episodes after it came back from its mid-season finale of sorts. I feel like they took a break so that The Last of Us could air and so that a lot of people could watch that, and then Quantum Leap just kind of stood in the background and like, okay, let that popularity die down a little bit before we come back on air. I mean, I don't know, but that's just what it felt like to me. But overall, I like this episode quite a bit. I think that it was a lot of fun. I don't think it was incredibly important narratively for this series, but I do think in terms of entertaining episodes, this was up there, you know? And heck, it got me questioning what's to come next for this mysterious figure, this name that knows more than they should, or something. But yeah, good episode. We are in the final stretch, I feel like, for this season, because it's not a full, like, 20, 22 episodes or something. It's like, what, 16, 18 episodes? I'm not entirely sure, but this was the 11th, and we're getting closer to figuring out what's going on. But until next time for Pondering Pilots, my name is Dave, and make sure that you hit like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review for a Quantum Leap episode. And until then, peace!